Hey, what's up YouTube? Welcome to another video by Ratchets and Wrenches, and today we are back to working on the Chevy Monte Carlo. Hopefully you guys don't mind this car because it's gonna be here for a couple of videos. This thing needs a lot of things fixed, and what we're gonna try to do today is find our coolant leak that we have on this car. That's from the right side of the engine, and try to fix that. Actually, I've already been underneath the car to see if I can find the leak. You really can't hardly see anything besides that the leak is coming from above the power steering pump, the power steering fluid reservoir, which is towards the right and back of the engine. After I figured it out, I kind of did some research online, and then seems like a common leak on these engines is from the intake manifold and or plastic pipe that goes to the intake manifold. So that's what we're gonna try to find out today. Okay, so looking from the bottom, seems like our leak is coming from back here somewhere. Okay, and it seems to leak around this the power steering fluid reservoir, which is that guy that's just behind these two hoses. So the way we're gonna find out is we're gonna have to remove this belt, this serpentine belt. You want to look around the engine bay area. If you don't see a diagram of how that thing is routed, you probably want to draw one yourself, especially if you don't have a repair manual like me. So after we remove this, we're going to remove the alternator, and we will hopefully be able to see where our leak is coming from. Okay, and the way you want to remove this belt is basically you'll get a 15mm wrench or a socket and a ratchet on here and turn this counterclockwise. That creates enough slack where you can just slide these off one of the pulleys, then you can remove the belt. Next, we're going to remove this engine cover. We do that by first removing this our oil cap. Then we need to twist this counterclockwise and pull. Next, we'll just get this out of here. You might want to just put this oil cap back on just in case, things moving around. You don't want any junk to fall back in the engine, okay? Okay, with the belt off, it's a good time to test these little pulleys, the bearings. You do that by just grabbing them and wiggling them, see if there's any play. If there is, there's a good chance that these are bad, and especially if you have any noises coming from this side of your engine. Okay, but these are all fine. This is just dirt that's on top of this pulley, and what we're gonna do next is remove the negative side of our battery. Then we're going to remove the cables that go to the alternator. Okay, and make sure you tuck it away so that it can't jump back and make contact with us. Okay, so next we're gonna remove this nut, which is gonna require a 13mm socket or a wrench. Okay, next we're going to remove this connector. Just press up on this tab and pull. There it is. Okay, next we're going to remove this 15mm bolt down here. There we go. Okay, next we're going to remove this 10mm bolt. That's for this bracket that goes to the alternator. There we go. Okay, next we're going to remove this 10mm nut and then remove this this bracket here. Just that. There's a little bracket. There's that. Okay, I don't know how I missed it, but there's another 15mm bolt here that connects this alternator to the engine. Okay, there's that, and now we should be able to get this out of here. There we go. Okay, so with the alternator out of the way, we can have a better look down here, and we do see some signs of coolant. We don't see any coolants, but we do see some signs of the coolant leak. Now that's around the water pump. That right there is your water pump, but it is actually, it looks like it's coming from further up than that. And indeed, it looks like it's coming from this serpentine belt tensioning assembly. Now, this is one of the first serpentine belt tensioning assemblies I've seen that has coolant running through it. But it does seem like it's at least either coming from this, or maybe it's still coming from behind it from the intake. But still have to be seen. What we're gonna have to probably do is actually drain the coolant, then remove these two hoses back here, and remove this assembly, and then look behind it, try to follow that. The corrosive looking thing is try to follow that up and see if it's leaking from there. But before we do that, actually there's something else we could do, which is to use one of these, which these basically they're called a radiator pressure tester. But what they do is they attach to your radiator cap, where your radiator cap goes to, and you just pump this and apply pressure up to about 14 to 15 psi's, which would simulate the amount of pressure that's in your cooling system while the engine is running and it's in that operating temperature. Then if you have any leaks, you're gonna just go around and look for any leaks and see if you can find them. Now, this is a cheap one. I got this from Harbor Freight. I don't even know for how much. It was a while ago, but it has broken and it has started leaking a little bit from around here, so I'm not gonna be able to, take my time with this. But I've already tested this and I found that indeed we are also having a leak from this plastic pipe that also goes through our tensioning assembly. Yeah, it looks like it's leaking from top of there. It probably has got a minor crack at top and it's leaking from there, but it's not a major leak. I don't think that's the cause of all the coolant that we got on the floor back there. I think it has to do to this leak, wherever that's coming from. But again, even when I tested this, with put pressure with my radiator pressure tester, I couldn't get that any coolant to show from there. So I'm still not sure. But what I'm gonna do is actually, just gonna apply pressure, and then I'll show you the leak on over there. And then what we're gonna do is probably have to drain the cooling system, and then remove that, and look behind it, see if we can follow the evidence, how far up we can follow that. Okay, now I'm gonna have to pump this tester quite rapidly and quickly in order for it to build up pressure enough so you can see the leak. But just look at the top of that thing, and you'll see the leak. Okay. So in order to remove the coolant, there's a little plastic cap that goes on your lower left side of your radiator. On this side that you need to access from the bottom, you can remove the splash shield to make life easier, or you can just pull this back a little bit and reach in there and turn that with a pair of pliers or something, turn it counterclockwise, and then you get all the coolant out. Okay, and here's a look at our drain plug. But as you can see, we're hardly getting any coolant out of here, even though I've removed this completely. That is because this radiator is pretty much all clogged up due to all this crap, all this corrosion and stuff. So yeah, I think what I'm gonna have to do is actually replace this radiator. I'm gonna save that for a different video, but for now, in order to get on with our intake manifold job, we're gonna have to actually just pull that tensioner housing on that side and put a couple catch bands underneath there and catch whatever coolant we can. Okay, in order to remove this tensioner housing, I see two 15mm bolts, so we're gonna remove these first and then wiggle it around and see if there's any more bolts we need to remove. Okay, there's another bolt down there underneath that you pretty much have to get to blind. You can remove this coolant overflow tank to make your life easier, but I have an assortment of adapters and whatnot, so I can get in there, but you might have to remove this reservoir to get to it. Okay, now with that last bolt removed, we can start removing this. Get your catch band underneath, because once you start pulling this little plastic hose that goes into the intake, as I just did, you're gonna get a, you're gonna start getting, you're gonna leak. So be ready. There we go. Okay, so now we just set the tensioning assembly aside, and as you can see, you see some signs of coolant leak everywhere. This is higher than the lower intake manifold, so I'm gonna assume this upper intake manifold is also leaking. But you know, while in there, I'm just gonna remove and replace everything. I'm gonna replace the upper intake manifold gasket, the lower intake manifold gaskets, and I'm gonna replace these two. This one that goes into there, I don't know if you can see, and then there's another plastic one, that one. Okay, and next we're just gonna go on to our wiring harness, get that out, and then get everything out of the way and start taking the upper intake manifold off. Okay. Next we're gonna remove these clips. Okay, next we need to disconnect this, remove this from the throttle body, and we do that by doing this. This is before the MAF, but still you don't want to damage it, okay? So you get one side out, do that, and then pull up and out. What I'm gonna do next is actually remove this throttle body to make life easier, make removing the intake easier. And we're gonna first do that by removing all these connectors. There's your MAF sensor connector. There's a tab here that needs to pull down. Same thing on this side. This is your throttle body connector, and this is your idler valve connector. Alright, and here's a vacuum line. Be careful with these vacuum lines if they're old, and you know, if you tug on them really hard you could break them, and then you have to go chase them down somewhere. Okay, and with these out, I think now there's only 3 nuts or bolts that hold these this throttle body in. There's one here, and there's 2 on the lower side, so we're gonna remove these next. And these are 10mm. Okay. In order to get to that one, you're gonna have to actually remove this bolt that holds this bracket in, connects it to the throttle body, and then we're gonna have to find a way, probably have to pry this back and then get to that one. Okay, and this is an 8mm bolt. Okay, now we just pry this back, being careful not to damage any connectors or anything, okay, any of our sensors. And yeah, that should give us plenty of room down there to get to that lower nut. There we go. And the third one is on this side, at the bottom. Okay. Alright, got it. Okay, now if everything's gonna go according to plan, we should be able to just pull this out and set this aside. Okay, it looks like we need to bend this bracket even further back to be able to take this out. Okay, I think now we should be good to go. Yes, we are. Oh, come on. There we go. Great time to clean your throttle body. This gives you plenty of access to the back of the plate and stuff. Okay, so if it says dirty as mine, go ahead and clean it with some throttle body cleaner. Okay, next we're gonna go around and start removing all this wiring harness, getting it off of the intake. And we're first gonna start by removing these connectors for injectors, fuel injectors. I'm just gonna go show you one, and then you can get an idea what it needs to be done. Okay, so in order to remove these connectors, that gray tab needs to be pulled towards you. And as you pull that towards you, you pull up on the blue one. And if you decide to use a pick like me, be very careful. You don't want to damage those wires, because if you damage them, you might have a hard time finding out. You or someone else might have a really hard time finding out where that problem is. Okay, so once you pull up on that, you just press this in again, and then you should be okay. Just pull on this a little bit more, I guess. And then there we go. Now you should be able to get this up. Okay, so now you want to do it for all the fuel injector connectors. Okay, so in order to get to this this injector, it's actually easier if you remove these. We're gonna have to remove this anyway, so we're gonna remove this first. And you remove this by pressing in that tab that's inside this the housing for it. And once you press that in, you just pull up, and you can get this out of the way. Okay, just set this aside for now. Next, take this connector off, like that. Disconnect this from the oil pressure lines by just sliding it out. Okay, next remove the wiring harness from this connector that attaches it to the fuel lines, and then we get these spark plug wires off the intake. And I don't think we're gonna have to remove these completely, but just loosen them should give us enough room to hopefully wiggle this out of there. Okay, let's not forget about this vacuum line that goes to our fuel pressure regulator. Be gentle, you don't want to break this. Okay, there. Okay, now. Okay, next we're gonna remove these 4 nuts that are securing the fuel pressure lines to the intake manifold. I can only see 4 right now, but I think that's probably it. So we're gonna go ahead and remove those. There's 2 here, 2 back here. We're gonna remove those next, and then we're gonna remove the pressure line, the fuel pressure lines without disconnecting the fuel supply lines and stuff. So that way we don't have to mess with that. Okay. Okay, actually before we remove our injectors and our fuel lines and then our intake manifold, you really need to clean all around those runners, because you don't want any junk getting in there, especially if it looks like something's been living there. In our case, so you can use a vacuum cleaner or some air. Just thoroughly clean it, make sure you air everything out and nothing ends up inside your engine. Okay. Okay, next we're just gonna pull on this, and it should come out without much of a fuss. There it is. And then I'm gonna lift this out of the way. Okay, yeah, I forgot to remove this from my fuel lines here. There we go. Get that out of the way. Now it should come out. I'm gonna loosen this too. Alright. There we go. Just gonna set this aside. Okay, so I decided to bungee cord this out of the way. It gives us plenty of room down here. Double check and make sure you got your O-rings out with your injectors, okay? It's really important. You don't want your O-rings to be in there, because when you go to put these back, it's not going to have a seal and you're going to have a leak and potentially a very dangerous situation of catching your engine on fire. Okay, so basically all that's left is removing all these bolts that hold this upper intake manifold in. I can see a bunch. I don't know, it's probably like 10 or so. So we're going to remove these next. Okay, and these are also 8mm. Okay. There's a little 10mm nut for this bracket down here, so you wanna probably gonna have to remove this too. Okay. Oh look, there's another one underneath it, so just go ahead and remove that one too. There we go. Okay, there's 2 more up top here. One here, and this guy right here. This one's a 10mm, this one's an 8. Okay. Okay, this bracket is held in with another 10mm bolt down there, so we're gonna have to remove that to get this off this where the upper intake manifold needs to come off. Okay. There we go. Okay, now we take this off, and I think that's the last bolt that's holding this in. Okay, before we get this out of here, there's one more brake line, vacuum line that I need you to disconnect, and that's one that goes to your power brake booster. I found it easier to disconnect it from here than the intake side. Just gonna wiggle this out of here, okay? Okay, that was holding it in. There we go.